Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT-06, and BT-06 adds a lot of new and powerful tools to build and update some current and existing decks with. And today's deck that I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be an updated version of Lilith Loop. So the whole idea of Lilith Loop is it's trying to take full advantage of what Lilith Mon is doing to not only use her when digivolving ability to replay some of your options, but to also use her other ability where it does trigger once per turn, but once per turn is limited to just the card, not the ability itself. So if we could reuse Lilith Mon multiple times, then we could use multiple instances of this ability, and we have an easy way of replaying our Lilithmons thanks to Omnimans Wart and the combination he has with the option card of Mega Digimon Fusion. So the deck is just a very powerful deck that can build a very big board state out of nowhere and can easily swing games into your favor. If you want a full breakdown on how to perform the Lilith Loop itself, I do have another video that you could reference in order to learn how to actually use the Lilith Loop and what it's actually doing. But anyway, onto the deck profile. I'm going to be running 2 copies of DemiMeramon. We really just want to use these 2 Digitama between DemiMeramon and Tsunomon, but you could kind of play around with the ratios in whatever way you want, depending on how you feel like your build is developing. But DemiMeramon is still just a really good card for the deck because he has this nice inheritable ability of on delete, allowing us to draw 1 card and trash 1 card from our hand. So this just allows us to dig through our deck faster and put cards into our trash, so that way we have an easy way to fill up our trash for Lilithmon's ability to be able to be triggered. And then I'm going to be running Tsunomon at 3 copies as the other Digitama of the deck, because this is another really good Digitama to help us draw cards. So what this card is doing is it has the nice inheritable ability where during your turn, once per turn, when you trash a card from your hand using one of your card effects, then you get to draw 1 card. So essentially, anytime we're going to be discarding is when we get to use Tsunomon to help us draw cards, which is basically replacing the card that we just lost. And that's pretty powerful for basically all of the same reasons why DemiMeramon is good, just used slightly differently. So again, you could play around with the ratios to figure out what you want and what you want to be supporting more, but it doesn't really matter because both of them are accomplishing the same goal of digging through your deck and making sure that when you're putting cards into your trash, there's purpose for doing so. Next, onto the rookies, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Candlemon. So Candlemon is just that value-efficient vanilla card where it just has a low play cost, low evo cost, and decent DP, making him an overall good card to be running. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Gazimon. So Gazimon is still a really important card to be running in the deck just because of how many different ways that decks got at gaining memory. So what this card is doing is he has the powerful ability where during all turns, your opponent can't gain memory except by their tamer effects. And with the inclusion of all of the new memory boosts and as more cards get added to the card pool that are going to try to play and manipulate the memory, Gazimon is still looking to be a very powerful card at shutting most of that off and limiting that interaction to only tamers. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Labramon. So Labramon is another really good card to be running for this deck because it has a nice on-play ability where you get to draw 1 card and then trash 1 card from your hand. So this is important because, again, in case we're trying to build something in the raising, we do want to hard play certain cards onto the field to try to get some benefit and advantage, and what better way of gaining a benefit or advantage for playing a card than not only digging through our deck to make sure that we could try to find our pieces, but filling up our trash so that way we can make sure our abilities are going to be as powerful as they possibly can be, and Labramon is just a really good facilitator to that. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Itmon. So if you really wanted to, you could just transition the 2 copies of this Itmon over into Labramon or spread it around between your other rookies. This card really isn't super important for the deck, but it is nice because it does have some synergy with what the deck is trying to do and other cards in the deck. So what his on-play ability is you get to trash 1 card from your hand, and then you get to return 1 Digimon with 7 Great Demon Lords or 3 Musketeers in its type from your trash back into your hand. So basically you're just swapping a card from your hand with basically a 7 Great Demon Lord, and that 7 Great Demon Lord is going to be Lilithmon, on top of the fact that it is triggering some of our discard synergy, because we are going to be playing certain cards that want to be interacting with discarding, like Tsunomon over here, so that way we could gain some additional benefits for just the act of discarding. So it's just a pretty cute card to be playing around with overall because of its synergy with Lilithmon and discarding as a whole, but it's not super important or relevant to the deck. It's just a nice addition to have, and like I said, it could be put it back into Labramon or some of the other rookies if we felt like it. But as far as the last rookie of the deck goes, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gazimon. So this is actually the starter deck version of Gazimon, just because the starter deck version of Gazimon does have some better interaction and synergy with some of our other cards in the deck, so that way we could be a little bit more aggressive than normal, because it has a nice when attacking ability where we could draw 1 card and then trash 1 card from our hand. It's just utilizing that, in quotation marks, looting ability to just not only help us get through our deck faster, but to fill up our trash faster at the same time. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Vilemon. So Vilemon is going to act as a blocker for the deck, so that way we have some form of defense, and what's making Vilemon a really good card to be running versus some of the other blockers is the fact that he does have 6000 DP. So having a blocker with 6000 DP means that he's going to be less susceptible to various forms of removal, making him just a really good card to be running as a result. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Meramon. So Meramon is just another tempo efficiency card that we want to be using because he has a low evo cost of 1, allowing us to get up into him and past him into our higher stages as quickly and efficiently as we possibly can, making him just a really good stepping stone for the deck to be using. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Ginkakumon Promote. So Ginkakumon Promote is a pretty good card for this deck to be running, even though we only care about the rush ability. So we only care about the rush ability not because we're going to be hard playing it from our hand, but because we're going to be playing it for free from our trash, making him a really good card to just want to bring back, so that way we could use his rush ability to attack the turn he comes back, and allow us to try to push and aggress onto the opponent with Ginkakumon Promote. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Devimon. So this is the blocker Devimon from the starter deck, and this card is still good just because it's acting as a dual role card, where if we need to, we could use him as another tempo efficiency card just because he evos for 1, similar to Meramon, and then he also is counting as a blocker, so he's also a good card to act as some solid defense. So he is a little bit of a weaker blocker, but the fact that he is a tempo efficiency blocker is making him a really good card to run still. Next, on to the ultimates, I'm going to be running 4 copies of LadyDevimon. So LadyDevimon is one of the most important ultimates that we could be running still in the deck, just because her ability gets even better with all of the new support that we have for it. So what her abilities are doing is she has a when digivolving ability where we get to draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards. So this is really powerful because Purple in BT-06 is going to be playing around with the sub-theme of discarding cards for additional benefits, and we already see this with our main Digitama of choice being Tsunomon, where we digivolve up into Lady Devi, we get to do her draw 2, discard 2, and then on top of that, because we discarded cards, we get an additional card draw out of Tsunomon, allowing us to just dig through our deck that much more efficiently. And then on top of that, she also has a really nice inheritable ability where during your turn, once per turn, when you use an option card, then you get to delete one of the opponent's level 3 Digimon, which is another removal ability, and that's still just a really good ability to have because if the opponent is playing, let's just say, their own versions of Gazimon and their own versions of cards like Cutemon, then this card is a very easy card to just delete those cards before your triggers happen, so that way we can actually utilize our cards as efficiently as we possibly can. And if we just need to get rid of a rookie just because we can, then it's just a free way of getting rid of a rookie off of the opponent's field at worst. And then the other ultimate of the deck that I'm going to be running is still going to be 4 copies of BlackWarGrowlmon. So BlackWarGrowlmon is really nice because he has this nice main ability of Digiburst 3, so you do have to get rid of your whole entire stack in order to bring back a level 3 Digimon from your trash, and unfortunately you don't get its on-play ability, but that's okay because we're mostly using this ability just to flood the field and to have a body to use as sacrificial fodder for his secondary ability, which is his inheritable effect, where when attacking once per turn, we get to delete one of our other Digimon to unsuspend this Digimon. So most of the time we're just going to be using his Digiburst ability to fuel his when attacking ability that he gives when we Digivolve on top of him, but at worst we could bring back a Gazimon and we could bring back some other cards to like start new stacks and combo with, so he's still just a very powerful card in his own right. Next, on to the Megas, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Lilithmon. So Lilith Loop is the name of the deck, so it only makes sense to max out on this card, so that way we could see it as often as we possibly can, and reuse this card as often as we possibly can because we're trying to take advantage of both of her abilities. So her first ability is a when Digivolving ability, where if we have 10 or more cards in our trash, then we get to return up to 2 purple option cards from our trash to our hand. So we're going to be using this in combination with mainly Jackraid, and Jackraid also combos with Lilith Mon's secondary ability, which we also want to repeat usage of, because it's another really powerful ability where during your turn, once per turn, when you use an option card, then you get to gain 2 memory. So in combination between bringing back and reusing our Jackraids, we have the ability to just gain lots of memory relatively quickly to make our plays even more powerful than they normally would be, so that way we could flood the field and play our cards as efficiently as possible. And then as far as the supporting mega of the deck goes, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Tsunomon. So Tsunomon is a very powerful supporting mega for the deck because of everything this card is doing and how we could utilize all of his new tools in combination with the deck to make a variety of different ways you could build the deck and allow us to use different cards, all depending on what you actually feel like using. So Tsunomon is a very powerful Digimon for both of his abilities. His first ability is a when Digivolving ability. We get to trash out 1 card from our hand to then play one of our purple level 4 or lower Digimon from our trash for free. So we use this ability to mainly want to target either a blocker or Ginkakumon Promote. Ginkakumon Promote will get his on-play ability if we choose to use it, so that's why you could include Ginkakumon in Ginkakumon, but again, I'm only using him just because I care about the rush ability. So I use Tsunomon as the primary way to res Ginkakumon Promote, so that way I could gain the rush ability that way. And then on top of that, he also has a nice secondary ability where during your turn, once per turn, when you trash a card from your hand due to your own card effects, then this Digimon gains plus 2000 DP and security attack plus 1 for the turn. So this is very, very powerful of an ability because, again, we have lots of ways of discarding cards ourselves in some powerful ways. So that way we could recursively trigger this ability if Tsunomon stays on the field, so that way he'll always have security attack plus 1, but at worst, the turn we Digivolve up into him, we could gain some additional memory and ensure that we're not going to be passing the turn. That way we could actually swing with Tsunomon, so that way we could deal lots of damage relatively quickly, especially paired up with BlackWarGrowlmon to gain multiple attacks. And then the last mega of the deck and the only level 7 of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Omnimans Wart. So Omnimans Wart is just an absolutely fantastic card and is one of the other key cards to just how this deck functions and works as a whole. So what this card is doing is he has a nice powerful when Digivolving ability where we get to trash the top 3 cards of our deck, and then we get to play up to 2 black and or purple Digimon with a play cost of 8 or less from our trash for free. So we use this to basically replay our ultimates, then we use those 2 cards to Digivolve into new megas to use their when Digivolving abilities again. And this is really, really powerful because he himself can add a mega back into our hand with his when attacking ability, where we get to return 1 level 6 Digimon from his Digivolution source back into our hand to delete one of the opponent's unsuspended Digimon with a play cost of 12 or less. So not only do we get to add a mega back into our hand, which we just spawned level 5s to then reuse whatever mega is underneath him, but we get to delete one of the opponent's unsuspended Digimon that has a play cost of 12 or less, so that's going to be hitting most level 6s. It does not hit all level 6s, and the Digimon does have to be unsuspended, so there is limitations, but it's still just a removal effect that we're looking to use to just to add a level 6 back into our hand to reuse. Next, onto the option cards, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Jackraid. So Jackraid is a really powerful card to be running for its synergy with Lilithmon, where it has the nice main ability where we get to gain 1 memory for every 10 cards in our trash. It also has a nice security ability to act as some defense in our security, where we get to gain 2 memory, which is effectively taking away 2 memory from the opponent, so it's just a good card to be playing with overall for this style of deck. And then the only other option card of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Mega Digimon Fusion. So Mega Digimon Fusion is another piece to this puzzle where it has the nice main ability where the next time one of our Digimon would digivolve from a level 6 to a level 7, we get to reduce the memory cost of that Digivolution by 6, but it does come at the hefty price of, at the end of the turn, we do have to return the Digimon that we digivolved with using this effect to the bottom of our deck, and then we trash all Digivolution sources underneath it. So Mega Digimon Fusion is just a very powerful card because it is what is allowing us to do all of this combo play with Omnimans Wart being able to digivolve him for free. Next, on to the Tamers of the deck, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Matt Ishida. So Matt Ishida is a pretty decent tamer still, just because he's going to be acting as the deck's dedicated memory fixing tamer. So if our memory is ever less than 3, he'll always hard set it to 3, and that's really important because it'll always allow us to start our turn with being able to digivolve into our ultimates and megas. And then on top of that, he also has this nice on-play ability where we get to return 1 purple Digimon or purple option card from our trash to our hand, allowing us to reuse some of the cards we already have used. So those 2 abilities just make him a very generically good tamer to be using for the deck overall. And then the last tamer of the deck and last card of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Takumi. So Takumi is another really important card because he is a white tamer. So we do need a white tamer in play in order to use our white options, and Takumi also helps with what the deck is trying to do because he has 2 very strong abilities. His first ability is whenever we get to digivolve one of our Digimon on our field, we get to suspend this tamer to draw an additional card. And then on top of that, it also has a nice ability that acts as some solid defense, where during all turns, all level 3 Digimon gain the ability of, when attacking, losing 1 memory. So it de-incentivizes the opponent from attacking with their rookies. Yes, it de-incentivizes you from attacking with your rookies, but you don't care about attacking with your rookies most of the time, because you're just going to be filling up your board state with a high-level Digimon anyway. So both of those elements combined between the additional card draws and some solid potential defense is what's making Takumi really, really good, on top of being a cheap and efficient white tamer to play, for us to use our white option to be able to digivolve Omnimans Wart for free. And then there's just a ton of other tech and tools you could be considering to use in the deck, all depending on how you want to support the deck and what you want to be playing and gaining out of the deck. So if you wanted, you could consider running Impmon and Vilemon, just because if you're running the new Impmon, then Vilemon is a 7 Great Demon Lord for you to target, so it's another potential card for you to grab, and it combos with Vilemon, so you could warp into it, so that way you could get into an easy Omnimans Wart that way, and start the loop as early as you possibly can, just because the Impmon also helps fill up your trash, and with all of the drawing and discarding, you could easily fill up your trash that way. Then you also have the BT-02 Gabumon to help fill up our trash and draw some cards, just because of his on-delete ability of drawing 2, discarding 1 is good. Then we also have Tapirmon to be considered playing with if we are going a little bit heavier into the on-deletes, because they'll help us draw a card, on top of the fact that we have Gilmon to play around with more on-deletes for the Chaos Gallantmon engine, just because he gains us a memory when he's deleted by a card effect, and we even have a new on-delete ability to be playing around with on our rookies in the form of Vilemon, where he'll delete an opponent's level 3 Digimon on delete, all stemming off of Chaos Gallantmon's type of playstyle, where we use his when digivolving ability to delete one of our Digimon to delete one of the opponent's Digimon, and we get to use his other ability to just bring back a level 3. So we have a plethora of different on-delete abilities we could re-trigger, and we even have Chimeramon to help synergize in combo with those on-delete abilities as an alternate way of deleting our own Digimon to trigger their effects. Then if you want to play a little bit more into Taitomon's package, you could consider running Gablimon as a way of DP boosting your Digimon for just discarding cards. Then you also could play, like I mentioned before, Kinkakumon and Ginkakumon because they're both relatively decent cards that have good payouts for discarding cards. Kinkakumon allows us to delete one of the opponent's low-level Digimon for attacking and discarding a card, which could trigger some of our discard benefits, but it's not as important as something like Ginkakumon, where we're going to be gaining a memory for discarding a card. That just makes Taitamon and LadyDevimon even more efficient, so that's definitely a possible route you could go into. And then you also have Ogremon as just a decent card to revive off of Taitamon if you just want to double down on some of the control aspects of what the deck could possibly do to delete one of the opponent's low-level Digimon by discarding a card, and then that also triggers our discard synergies that way. Then, if you want, you could even consider playing the brand new promo Wizardmon, because whenever we're going to be playing an option, we'll gain an additional memory. So it's a mini Lilithmon ability on an inheritable, so that way we could use Jackraid in combination with our supporting megas to then kind of act as a little Lilithmon that way to try to start the loop differently. Then we also have Cerberusmon and Cerberusmon Werewolf mode to be considered playing with it, depending on the type of support package that you want to be running them with. Just because Zwart does have easy ways of bringing back level 5s, which we would use to bring back Cerberusmon, and then we could then hold Cerberusmon Werewolf mode in our hand to just sacrifice the free Cerberusmon that we got to trigger his abilities, on top of triggering Werewolf mode's ability to gain us 9 memory and have a rush card to be playing with for some additional aggro. And one of the best supporting megas we could play that package with is going to be not only just Taitamon because it is interacting with drawing and discarding, but Plutomon because we could use Plutomon to play our options for free on top of drawing lots of additional cards. So Plutomon in combination with Wizardmon in combination with Cerberusmon is looking to be pretty good because we get options like Necrophobia that we could use for free to then be able to play Cerberusmon Werewolf mode and or the other Cerberusmon that way. Then we also, continuing with some of the Taitamon engine, could play Rebellimon as just a decent blocker with retaliation to stall out some of the opponent's actions and movements for a turn to then digivolve into our Mega and then combo off from there. Or we could play Skullgreymon just to act as some solid discard fodder to just add retaliation onto any of our purple Digimon. Then we have Anubismon as just another generically decent card to be running with the deck, just because whatever we're reviving, it could gain the rush ability off of his ability, and at worst, when we digivolve him, he's going to be spawning a level 3, so even if we loop that, we just get level 3s with rush, which is still just very, very powerful because it puts a lot of extra pressure onto the opponent. Then we do have memory boost options that we could consider running because they're still decent options to be using in their own right to help with the deck's overall consistency. So Grave Memory Boost is to bring back something that we want in our trash, and we could even use a Purple Memory Boost to help with the consistency on digging through our deck to find the cards that we want by looking at the top 4, and then picking a purple Digimon among them, which is good with the delay ability of gaining 2 memory as well. And then we even have Underworld's Call to act as a really good card to discard with all of our discard synergies because it's going to be allowing us to draw 1 card, and we could even use its main ability to res a level 4 Digimon from our trash, and we do get their on-play ability. So we could res Ogremon, we could res Ginkakumon Promote. There's just a lot of different targets that we could res using this card. And then we do have some alternate Tamers that we could consider running for the deck. So you could consider playing Tai Kamiya and Matt Ishida as a really nice white duo Tamer. But if you just want an alternate memory fixing Tamer that is white, we could also run Moena. We only care about the fact that she is a white memory fixing Tamer. But it looks like the Lilith Loop deck is here to stay, and this deck is still a very powerful deck just because it's a very strong combo deck that can build a very powerful and very wide board state, essentially out of nowhere. And there's, like I said, multiple different ways on building the deck, all depending on what tools and tech you want to be using to support the deck with. And all of the new cards from BT-06 seem to be helping the deck flow in various different directions, making it just a very strong deck to be playing around with a lot of depth and diversity. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.